Roseanne heard a knock on the door and felt tempted not to open it. Raymond, her husband of 6 years, should have been home by now, and it pissed her off that the 20 centimeters of snow that had fallen earlier that morning while she'd been at work at the hospital hadn't been cleared away yet. The clouds had cleared, the north wind had picked up, and the temperature had dropped rock bottom. She'd be damned if she'd shovel the driveway herself. Seeing the aforementioned snow, she called her husband in advance to see when he'd be home, but couldn't get through. Well, that's clear. She thought it was so like him to try to get away from work. Asshole. At the hospital, she changed into jeans and planned to relax on Sunday after an early morning and a busy day in the various operating rooms and labor and delivery rooms, as anesthesiologists usually did. Since she had only been on staff for 18 months, she had to be on call on weekends. She heard the knock again and went to open the door, concerned that Raymond was still gone. She looked through the peephole and saw Dell standing next to an unfamiliar man in uniform. Dell, also known as Randall, was a detective sergeant with the sheriff's office a few counties north of Minneapolis, where he and Raymond had grown up. She and her husband were expected to go ice fishing this weekend. Dell was the biggest redneck she'd ever met. She couldn't believe that she and her husband were best friends, and it always pissed her off when they met. Raymond had only gotten back into ice fishing this winter. She knew he'd done it as a teenager, but she couldn't understand why he was so eager to freeze his ass off again. Maybe it had something to do with his recent illness, maybe not. "Damn it, Dell! What the hell do you want? I thought my worthless husband was with your sorry ass!" Dell wasn't surprised at that greeting. They'd never gotten along, especially in the last 2 years after she'd been caught cheating on Ray. "This isn't a social visit, Rosie. It's damn cold in here. Can we come in?" "I told you I'm Rosanna. I don't like it when even Raymond calls me Rosie. So no, I'm not letting you in. It'll give you an incentive to get this over with quickly." Dell sighed loudly. "Damn you, Roseanne. But okay, this is Officer Tyler Perkins of the State Patrol. He has some official business to discuss with you." Roseanne raised her eyes to the giant officer. She wondered where they always find these huge men to be officers. With his hat on, he looked over 2 meters tall, though he was probably just under 2. "Mrs. Franklin, I am very sorry to inform you that your husband and his car fell through the ice this morning. The part of the lake where he fell is over 45 meters deep, and the ice in that area is not considered stable enough to use large rescue equipment. Current rescue efforts have been unsuccessful, and with him being there for so long, no one believes anyone else might still be alive. In a couple days, when the weather improves, we will try again to get the car and his body out. Here are some photos from the scene before the rescue crews showed up." And the officer had a clipboard and flipped through some photos where she could clearly see Raymond's tent and camp stove standing next to a large hole in the ice that Raymond's SUV seemed to be too heavy for. There were also several photos of the dive team working with lightweight equipment they could have used to lift the SUV had they been able to find it earlier in the day. Roseanne said, "This is dumb shit. He doesn't even know how to fish properly. Now who's going to clear the damn snow off the driveway? I swear to God, he can't even die right. Poor Samantha. I bet she wishes it was you with him." The officer was stunned to see that this woman was completely indifferent to her husband's death. Dell, on the other hand, was not surprised. The second honeymoon, after her mother convinced Raymond to take her back, didn't last long. For years, she'd been harpy toward Dell. "I warned Ray not to drive too far. This winter wasn't that cold, so it wasn't safe to drive too far from the coast, but he kept trying his luck." Rosanna replied, "Maybe the headaches from his cancer became too unbearable and he decided to jump out of his underwear and kill himself." Dell's face reflected surprise. "Did you know about the cancer?" "Of course I did," Roseanne replied. "That asshole couldn't hide anything from me. He thought he was keeping it a secret. But when I saw the $4,000 check to the hospital and discovered the CT scan of his little brain hidden in his office files, I knew. At least I found them in time to get a couple of different life insurance policies on his ass. Now, is there anything else you might need from me?" Dell shook his head, amazed at the woman's insolence. "Damn, that's cool, even for you, Rosie." "I'm Roseanne, asshole," and the officer tried to take control of the situation. "Ma'am, We'll have paperwork for you to sign tomorrow or the day after tomorrow. Hopefully, we'll have the body out soon. I'm sorry for your loss." "Don't worry about that. Let me know when they fish his ass out, and I'll dictate the name of a funeral home to clean him up and roast him. You got it? Fish his ass out, clean it, and fry it." She looked at them, but they didn't laugh. "Oh, calm down. He wasn't a saint either. Have you told his mother yet?" "No, we're legally obliged to notify you first. Do you want to tell her yourself, or should we?" "We're not on the best of terms," said Rosanna, "so it's better if you do it. If you don't need anything else, I have things to do. For instance, I need to get warm. Excuse me." Both men stood with their mouths open as she closed the door in front of them. As they turned to leave, they heard through the door, "Yahoo, damn it! I told you she was just a frigid bitch," Dell said. "Karma has a way of catching up with people like her," Ty replied. Dell smiled and said, "I hope so." Both men headed for the large Ford parked in front of a neighbor's house to head back to their county. Rosanna, wasting no time, called her lover. "Hey, Clint, I'm free tonight. If you think you can console me, tell your wife that the hospital called and asked you to come back." Dr. Clinton Williams, the surgeon, was always ready to have fun with Roseanne, even though earlier in the afternoon they had already sneaked into the empty office for a quick fuck. "I thought your husband was coming back this afternoon. How are you gonna sneak out?" "You're never gonna believe this. The state police just showed up and told me that the stupid shit fell through the ice this morning and drowned. I'm free of him forever. I'm taking a sick day tomorrow morning. Let's go celebrate." "Your husband just died and you want to go out and celebrate?" "Damn right I do. You know I couldn't stand him. You're refusing to have sex with me?" Clint hesitated, had been, but Roseanne was pretty damn good, especially compared to his conservative wife, so he wasn't about to give her the chance to replace him with someone else. If what she'd just said was true, he'd probably be sleeping with her a lot more often in the very near future. "What time do you want me to pick you up?" "That's my man, as soon as possible, and plan on spending the night, and I'll make it worth your while." "To make it worth your while," he replied. "I'll find a way. I'll be at your place in an hour." It was a wild night for the two of them. Roseanne had never allowed Clint to be affectionate in public because she didn't want to risk the possibility that her husband or one of Dell's goons might take a picture of her in a compromising situation. But today was different. No more husband, no more secrecy, no more reluctance to grind and drain Clint on the dance floor. "Remind me again why you stayed with your husband when you hated him so much." "I told you, $3 million. My Catholic and conniving mother was ashamed of him when he caught me cheating and convinced him he was too good a man to let him go back to the ocean. She then convinced him to give me another chance by changing the terms of the prenup to prove he was completely serious. At that point, I had no hatred for him. The original prenup excluded everything I brought into the marriage, like our house, and anything I might have gotten from my parents from sharing. After the divorce, things changed. If I divorced him for any reason, he would get half of everything. However, if he divorced me, everything would be under the terms of the old prenup unless he had proof of infidelity, which is why you and I only had to have sex in the hospital under very controlled conditions. Getting caught would be too expensive. If I caught him cheating, I went back to the terms of the old prenup, so I kept slut-shaming him, but he never bought it. As you know, my parents were surgeons at the Mayo Clinic, and they had about $6 million in assets and pensions when they died in that accident last year. I didn't want him to get even half that amount, so I stayed married to him until now. "I don't understand," Clint said. "If you cheated on him before, why did you stay married?" "I just felt so bad." At 30, I'm too young to be a practicing anesthesiologist. I had never failed at anything in my life, so I wanted to prove to myself, my parents, and him that I could be a good wife. It wasn't until later that I realized I wasn't cut out for monogamy and should have used this as a chance to escape, but my mom talked me into staying married. Stupid, I know, and expensive, until today. Yahoo, give me a kiss, baby. After a fun night out on the town, she asked Clint to take her home, where they proceeded to have each other in the kitchen, the living room, and finally the bedroom. What kept her continuing to have sex was the excitement of being free of Raymond. Exhausted, they lay down next to each other and fell into a blissful sleep. At 8 in the morning, it was time for Clint to go home. They were still drying off when they heard the garage door open and a uniformed Dell and her presumed dead husband walked in. Dressed only in towels, Roseanne and Clint were shocked to see that Raymond was alive. Dell handed her a large manila paper envelope and said, "Roseanne Franklin, this is the official handout." "Oh, and by the way, Dr. Cletus," Ray said, deliberately mispronouncing his name, "you should probably go home. I suspect that any minute now, your wife should be receiving her own envelope with pictures and a video of your performance last night." Putting modesty to hell, Clint threw on his clothes and dashed out the door, hoping to clear up at least one thing before his wife got any compromising information. What he didn't realize was that it was already too late. A wide, shit-eating grin froze on Raymond's face as he saw his wife's expression change from stunned to furious. "Oh, hell no, Dell. I'll sue you and the sheriff and the state patrol if I have to. You and Officer Perkins told me he was dead. That gets me off the hook." "Who exactly told you he was dead? Do you have proof? Ray and I watched sports at my house all weekend. It was too cold to fish. Samantha wasn't too happy with us. I'll let you in on a little secret, Rosie. I haven't been ice fishing since I was a kid. I love fishing, but not when it's cold." "I'll get the phone records. I'm sure there are cell phone records from cell towers around here. I'll get the patrol car records and get Officer Perkins to testify under oath." "Good luck to you, Rosie," Ray said. "I'll see you in court." He and Dell turned to walk out, grinning like idiots. Roseanne almost screamed. No, 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 that's not going to go away. It was false information. I didn't do anything wrong." Ray and Dell kept walking and laughing. Roseanne collapsed on the bed, unable to believe that the two idiots had outsmarted her. Back at Ray's SUV, which obviously hadn't fallen through the ice, Dell asked, "Ray, wouldn't you like to stay and watch her face when she finds out there's no Officer Perkins on the state patrol?" She never got a good look at his car and apparently failed to realize that his uniform was a very believable masquerade costume. "Nah, I don't need to stick around for that. The cameras inside the house are still working. I'll see and hear everything later. Besides, I need to go and thank Ty for the performance he put on. He must be a good actor." Also, Samantha came up with a great idea about faking the CT scan that made Rosie think I had cancer. Ty had the pleasure of doing it. Besides, considering you paid the deductible on his insurance to help his daughter get her eye surgery, he felt obligated to you. That's what inspired Samantha's idea to make that payment look like you were getting tested for cancer. I just made the payment in advance. Ty's too nice a guy to worry about that. Didn't you say he passed the deputy exam? Yes, he did. For the next 6 months, we got to find a place for him. Buying a tent that looked exactly like the one that fell through the ice with the SUV last year was a stroke of genius. If I didn't know for sure, I could have sworn it was your tent in that picture. It was pretty easy. She wanted to believe it was true, and she did. Are you staying in Minneapolis or moving closer to home? Closer to home, I think. There are some nice places near St. Cloud that are only a half-hour away. Mom will be happy. Getting a big check from the divorce means I can start my own engineering company or just hire consultants on the side. Maybe as a thank you for helping me, I'll send you and Liz to Cancun for your anniversary. I'm surprised she's so interested in a beach vacation with her fair skin. You're only mentioning Cancun because you're hoping she'll put in a good word with her pretty sister Angela. Good thing you're the detective and not Rosie. You can see what's coming. Thank God she couldn't. Take your time talking to Angela. I don't think I really feel like going on a date with anyone right now, but hopefully I'll be ready to meet Angela soon. I think you'll be surprised at how ready you are. In addition to the previous cheating, you suspected that she cheated on you again for over a year. I doubt you have that much love left in your heart for Rosie. That's true. Mostly sadness. But that doesn't mean I'm ready for someone else. I don't think it would be too hard to convince Angela to go to Cancun with me and Samantha. You should see Angela in a bikini. If you join us, you'll see her wearing one. The mental image of Angela in a bikini seemed quite pleasant to Ray. Wouldn't their fair skin get sunburned? Dell laughed. I don't even know why we're so sure you're the smartest. Samantha, on the other hand, kept mentioning me giving her a massage while we sipped margaritas under some impressive gazebo while she listened to the sound of the waves. Also, if she wants to sit in the sun, I'll be there to ensure that sunscreen is applied carefully and often. If we have Angela with us, it will be much better for her if you do the job rather than me or anyone else. Ray smiled, thinking about how tempting those two red-haired sisters were. The trip was starting to look interesting. Rosie had hired a lawyer and a private investigator to try to document that she had been deliberately deceived by the officers, giving her the opportunity to free herself, but Dell, Ray, and Ty had covered their tracks too well. Their phones had been checked, and they all had alibis for the time they were supposedly visiting Rosie. She couldn't find a single witness who had seen them at her house. Given the cold on that Sunday afternoon, everyone tried to stay indoors. In the end, she was forced to give over half of all her assets, including the inheritance from her parents, to Ray. She pondered whether to use the remainder to go after him, but decided it wasn't worth it. Dr. Clint's wife showed no such understanding. She immediately kicked her husband out of the house and told her father, who was on the hospital's board of directors. Rosie and Clint were suddenly fired and had to leave town to find work. As for Ray and Dell, Cancun was gorgeous, and they really enjoyed Samantha and Angela getting regular massages and, when necessary, protecting themselves with lots of carefully applied sunscreen. They even managed to spend one day deep sea fishing. That day, what they caught was fun, but the best catch of the day was watching Samantha and Angela sunbathe topless on the spacious deck of the boat. Now that was the best kind of fishing.